Hello everyone, and thanks for visiting Bluebeam Back to Basics. Today we'll be talking about stamps. For those of you I have not met personally, you can reach me at that phone number and email address, and we encourage you to visit our website where you can learn all about our Bluebeam training program. Stamps are intended to replace the rubber and ink stamps that people use when processing paper documents. In Bluebeam, a stamp is nothing more than a PDF file that you can use over and over again for that purpose. If you go to Tools and Stamp, you'll see a list of provided stamps that came with Bluebeam for you to experiment with. I'm going to choose Approved. If I just go to the document and click a single data point, it will place that stamp exactly as it was created. But instead, if I want to, I can go to Approved and I can click and drag, and it will place a proportionally scaled copy of that stamp to fit the area that I've allowed for it. So you've got either of those choices. You can edit the provided stamps by going to Tools, Stamps, and each one of them on the right hand side has a little pencil indicator saying, in essence, click here to modify or edit this stamp template. So I'm going to choose that, and it opens up the stamp template where I can modify anything that's on it. And you may notice some interesting things at the bottom of that. We're going to get back to those in just a moment. They're called dynamic stamps. If you wanted to create a brand new stamp from scratch, you could do it yourself, and then you could go into Tools, Stamp, and go to Import, and you could just copy that stamp and it will tell it, take it and put it where it needs to be, and it would automatically become part of your stamp library. But the easiest way to create stamps I've found is to go to Tools, Stamp, and go to the Create Stamp utility. From here, you've got a list of menu choices to help you in creating your stamp. The first thing you want to do is give it a name. Now you want to choose one of the existing templates if that's how you'd like to get started. I'm just going to leave mine blank. And then blend mode indicates how your stamp will interact with PDF content. Just go to the help utility and look at that, and it'll explain exactly what those options are. Now right above that is the size of your canvas. If you were doing an engineering stamp, you would probably want a more square value, like 2 by 2 or 4 by 4 as opposed to 4 by 1. So just modify that to indicate exactly what you'd like. I'm going to change the color of my text and the default color of my lines, and I'm going to say create. And I've got a stamp. It's ready to go. It's just empty. And if I hover my mouse over it, you'll actually see where your stamps are located. In my case, it's C:\program data, Bluebeam software, Bluebeam Revu 20 stamps, and then the name that I gave it. Now from here, I can just go in and use any of the markup tools, including images and various other tools there to create what I want my stamp to look like. I'm going to click and drag here for text, and I'm going to start placing my text. But what I really want you to notice is the thing in the lower left-hand corner that popped up as I started editing a stamp. This is where you make your stamps interact with the computer operating system to extract available information and put it into your stamp automatically, therefore making your stamp dynamic in nature instead of static. When you click on it, there's a list of things that you can pull from the computer. So if I wanted to have this document's file name included in the stamp, I could just put in file. Now I can bring that separate from my other work, and I could change all the various variables for that. I could come down here and say that I don't want that to be a 12-point font. I want it to be 9, and I want it to maybe be left justified, and I want it to be italicized. And I could also then, after the file name, I could add another line maybe, and I could come in here and say that I want you to extract today's date. Now you'll notice, in addition to date, I've got 2-digit month, 3-letter abbreviated month, year. I could combine all of those into a formula of exactly how I wanted it to be displayed. Instead of time, I could tell it to put the hours and minutes and even seconds that this stamp was created. I'm going to use some of the defaults here and just say date. Okay, so I'm pretty much done with my stamp. I like it just the way it is, and I'm just going to come up here and save it. And I'm done with my stamp. I can now kill it, and when I go to Tools and Stamp, right at the bottom is this YouTube demo stamp, and if I click and drag, it will proportionally scale it. And there's the text that I put in, and there's the file name, and then there's obviously the date as well. You can make these stamps look pretty impressive. If I go back to Tools and Stamp and I choose Revised, for example, here's a stamp that uses a good use of color as well as dynamic features that are in it. And you can even, if you go a little bit further and you learn about JavaScript, you can create stamps using JavaScript that have a interactivity with the user placing the stamp, where they answer questions in order to make changes on the finished stamp. Here's an example of that. If I go to Stamps and I choose this one called Engineering Review and I click and drag it, it pops up a little dialog box modal that says, please make your choice. Is this stamp being done for approved as corrected, approved, revised, resubmit, rejected? You know, what is the various thing here? Who was it checked by? And then it's giving you today's date, but it's also giving you the ability to change today's date if you wanted to do that. Right, so I'm going to leave that just the way it is, and I'll hit OK. And when it finalizes the stamp, you can see that the check mark is indicated by what I chose, along with the username and the date, which has been modified. If you have the Bluebeam Revu Extreme Edition, you can take your stamps to a whole new level by going to Batch, Sign and Seal. Now, I've only got one document selected at this point in time, but I could go to Add, and I could add all the open files, all of the files in a particular folder, all of the files in a folder tree, just a large number of documents in this batch. And then when I go into Sign and Seal, it allows me to place a signature, a date, and a stamp all at the same time on dozens or hundreds of files in one batch activity. I'm going to change my stamp to the one called Revised, and I'm going to take it and I'm going to drag it down to the area where I'd like it to be. You don't have to use a digital signature or a date in order for batch, sign, and seal to be utilized. If I make these choices, it's just going to stamp each of the pages in the location where I wanted it to be. Now you'll also note that in the lower left-hand corner, the page size is indicated. If all of my pages are 8.5 by 11, it's just going to do exactly what's on the screen there. But if I had a combination of sizes, this little pull down arrow here would indicate the various options, and I'd be able to do this same setup method for an 11 by 17 or 22 by 34, you know, whatever your particular paper size is, so that when you run this batch, it'll automatically adjust for each of the available paper sizes within your collected batch of documents to be stamped. That's it. I hope you find this video helpful, and you'll review the other videos available as well.